Well, I'm joined today by my good friend, Joe Burchett, who is the assistant professor at New Mexico State University. Joe's specialty is in extragalactic astrophysics, which sounds amazing just on its own. It would be remiss for me to not point out that Joe is also originally from Paintsville, Kentucky. And in researching and explaining the universe, he's worked with everything from slime mold to the Hubble Space Telescope. Joe, it's great to be joined by you today. How you doing?
Good, great, good to see you, old friend.
Yeah, man. So we're talking about space and we're talking about Kentucky. We have a great exhibit called Cool Kentucky here at the museum. And you let me in on a little secret a long time ago that a man named Edwin Hubble has some direct connections to the state of Kentucky and the city of Louisville as well. Can you share a little bit about that?
Yeah, so Edwin Hubble, who the famous astronomer, who literally changed the way we think about the universe and our understanding of our place in it. Before he was an astronomer, he spent a very pivotal year of his life in Kentucky. He had gotten his degree from the University of Chicago. His family moved to Shelbyville, Kentucky, to enjoy the rural life, more rural lifestyle afforded there. And he then moved to a couple places in Louisville, and then went off to England to go to pursue a law degree, which was his father's sort of dream for him. His father passed away while he was in England. He came back to take care of his family, and he actually was a high school teacher over across the river there in New Albany. And was the basketball coach, coached a pretty good team as far as I understand.
Yeah, they took third in the state, man.
Third in the state. I mean, and if that weren't enough, he decided to go on and change the world, or maybe the universe as we know it. He pursued a degree in astronomy. So he went to the Yerkes Observatory and became an astronomer. And the rest is so-called history.
Yeah, one thing I point out to kids a lot when I talk about Edwin Hubble, he coached that basketball team because he had incredible basketball experience. He played for the Chicago Maroons when he was an undergrad, and it was before the NCAA existed, and so there wasn't like a tournament, but there was a third party, a governing body that awarded the national championship, and they won 3 national championships in a row while he was on that team. So he's a 3-time national champion also. It's pretty awesome.
Amazing.
So in addition to being an incredible basketball player and coach and Spanish teacher, what makes Edwin Hubble so important?
Yeah, so this is really quite fascinating on a number of levels. So just to make sure we're all on the same page here, we live on planet Earth, which revolves around our star, the sun. And the sun is one of billions and billions of stars in our galaxy, the Milky Way galaxy. The universe is infinite. There are an infinite number of these galaxies, like the Milky Way that we live in. But this is kind of fundamental to, right, the organization of the universe, of everything, right? And just a little over 100 years ago, we had no sense of this. The picture was very different. And so Edwin Hubble's key contribution to our understanding of our place in the universe is nothing less than the fact that these other galaxies that we go out and observe, that I observe thousands and thousands of on a regular basis, that these are not inside our own galaxy. In other words, the sort of fundamental organization of matter in the universe, in that, all of these so-called, at the time, they could look up and they could see these so-called spiral nebulae. And so the idea that these spiral nebulae were other galaxies was very much a matter of debate, rather than being within our own galaxy, was a matter of great debate in the early 20th century. So Hubble, leveraging the brilliant work of a woman named Henrietta Swan Leavitt was able to show that by observing stars in these spiral nebulae, that they were actually much, much more distant than so as to be in our own galaxy. So these were effectively so-called island universes. These spiral nebulae were their own systems of stars, just like the one our sun resides within.
Yeah, that's it's fascinating to put it into perspective and to understand. Just we take a lot of things for granted at this point. Like, you know, there's so much knowledge that 100 years ago, our concept of everything beyond what we can see was so radically different. That's amazing.
Yeah, and human history has had all of these. I'll just add that human history has had all of these moments where, you know, we've really had to rethink our place in the universe. And, you know, just thinking back to, I mean, for the entirety of human civilization, you know, the dominant idea was that the Earth was the center of everything, and the sun revolved around the Earth and the planets, and we came up with all of these complicated explanations to try to make ourselves the most important, the most significant part of the universe. And so Galileo, this was, you know, back in the 1600s, Galileo proved that was not true. That in fact the sun was at the center of the solar system, and the Earth revolved around it, as do all the other planets. But you know, there was almost another so-called Copernican revolution in the early 20th century that Hubble really ushered in by showing that our universe, that, you know, our sun is not at the center of the universe, and you know, that things are actually much, much bigger, and don't necessarily revolve around us like we might have hoped.
Well, and so now Hubble's name graces the very famous Hubble Space Telescope, which you have the good fortune and the great ability to use in your research. And I'm curious what the process is for you to gain access to the Hubble. And if you could just give us like a glimpse into what you are using it for, what kind of research you're doing with it.
Yeah, so that's a good question. And the Hubble Space Telescope is, you know, it's very much a public endeavor, right? The U.S. taxpayer and other taxpayers around the world fund the Hubble Space Telescope. And so the data are publicly available for anyone to use after some period where principal investigators such as myself, you know, get an initial period to work on the data. But to get a project approved for the Hubble, there's a peer-reviewed proposal process where this takes place in essentially every year. The most wonderful time of the year for a person like me. Not. So there's a proposal deadline, usually in March or April. The Hubble is very oversubscribed. There's a lot more people ask for time than time they have to offer. So there will be a telescope allocation committee that will review those proposals. That process takes a couple of months. The panel will come together and you know, rank the proposals based on their impact on the field, the scientific importance, et cetera. And then those observations will be carried out from about October of that year through October of the next year. And then the whole process starts again. They're actually called cycles in the spring. So yeah, it's a huge honor to get a program approved, and I've been fortunate enough to have a couple of programs approved. Some of the things that my research really concerns the formation and evolution of galaxies. So would have been very near and dear to Hubble's heart. And so the idea, you know, one of the big questions in extragalactic astrophysics and astrophysics in general sort of stems from the fact that some galaxies are leading sort of what you can think of as vibrant lives, right? They're forming new generations of stars. Things are proceeding along happily. whereas other galaxies have not formed any new stars for a very long time. They're so-called red and dead. Only the oldest, reddest stars exist in those galaxies, and no new bluer colored ones are forming. So this question of how that transition happens, how that evolution occurs, it really sits at the heart of my research. So I use the Hubble and other telescopes to observe the gas flows in and out of galaxies, because it's really the gas supply is crucial to forming new stars. Stars don't form out of nothing; they form out of fresh reservoirs of gas. And so the Hubble is simply the only game in town for studying this gas in the way I do.
Awesome. That's amazing, man. So I know there's a story that I've heard about Edwin Hubble, that his fascination with outer space kind of stemmed from a moment when his grandfather took him to a cow pasture with a little, probably rinky-dink telescope, and showed him what was up there. I'm wondering if you had a similar aha moment in your life that you can point to that was really transformational.
Not in the same kind of romantic way that involves cows, or even really kind of looking up at the night sky and knowing this is what I wanted to do. As a kid, I was always fascinated by space, and I watched Star Trek and Battlestar Galactica, and Buck Rogers, and these things, Lost in Space. But it wasn't until actually I got interested in physics. Just to back up for a second, I had a former career as a musician and music teacher, where I got to know you. So I became interested in physics, and started taking some master's level classes at the University of Louisville, so I joined the master's program at U of L there, in physics. And I was told, well, you should get involved in some kind of research. And so I think there was a point where the work there of some of the folks, Jim LaRoche, Jerry Williger, John Kielkopf, I got to see that these people actually used the physics, the quantum mechanics, the electrodynamics, all this cool physics to actually learn about to unveil the mysteries of the universe. And I think it was sort of that sweet combination of just a love of physics and science, and the curiosity, the sort of infinite nature, and the philosophically just huge scales that we can leverage physics to learn about.
Yeah, I remember it was probably 2006 or 2007 when I was Halloween night, and you needed someone to help you move the telescope on top of the U of L. Was it the Arts and Sciences building or something?
Absolutely.
So, yeah. So I remember dropping everything and being like, cool, I'm gonna go look through that telescope with Joe. You seemed very excited about everything then. It was probably very fresh at that time too. So one last thing, Joe, do you have any advice that you would give for a young person who is just curious about space, or would actually like to pursue a career in astronomy or astrophysics or anything related to the field that you're in?
Yeah, so really, we've mentioned physics. There's math involved, right? There's all of these. There's all this academic stuff that comes along with the job that I do and the education, but really just curiosity and creativity, I think, are really key to succeeding and thinking about what the important questions are one wants to answer scientifically, and about the universe around us. And so, I would encourage students, young or old alike, who may be curious, maybe interested in science, to really embrace what you bring to the table in terms of creativity and curiosity, And, math and the physics and the science, these things can be frustrating in school. I know that I found myself quite frustrated at many points in school, but there really is a place for everyone in science. That includes Kentuckians like me and like Hubble. So I would say just embrace what you can bring to the table, because you do have something that's special and unique that it can really push the field forward.
That's awesome. I mean, hearing you say that makes me think of two things with you. Just artistically, you've approached based on what your life as a musician. I know that you've actually done some sound installations that were inspired by vibrations or sounds that you collected from your research.
Yeah.
Super awesome. But the other thing that I always think about too is how you have a knack for bringing your sense of humor into educating about space too. In particular, I watched the one live YouTube stream. What was it about? Like universal, like did the universe burp? Was that what it was?
No, it was fart.
Yeah, it was great. So
galaxies pass gas. I mean, it pretty much just writes itself.
It does.
Right?
It was a great talk. I really enjoyed it. I learned a lot. So speaking of that, if anyone else would like to learn more about what you do or find out anything regarding your research, is there anywhere that people can look?
Yeah, so I have a website, joeburchett.com, which is updated fairly sporadically, but I do try to include some of the highlights of research that I'm working on. And very soon, I will be highlighting some of the great research that my students are involved in. So you can stay tuned to that. The New Mexico State University astronomy website, which can be found by Googling exactly that. We have news items and such and social media. We do some virtual outreach events, such as an open house at our telescope that sits right over there on a mountain that overlooks the university. We do live streams from there, doing real-time observations. So
awesome. That's
so
great.
that's a lot of fun. Yeah, so I would say those two sources for sure.
Cool. That's awesome. Well, and I'll include links in the body of this. And with that, Joe, thank you so much for joining us. My thanks from the Fraser and everyone in Kentucky. Way to go. Making us proud, man.
It's been a blast. Thanks, Mick. Thanks, Kentucky.